Greetings, my Ghanaian sisters and brothers at home and abroad. In the last week of October 2022, we were treated to dueling speeches by John Dramani Mahama as the standard bearer for the NDC and President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo representing the views of the NPP on the economy of Ghana. On November 3rd, 2022, I delivered a summary response for both, outlining my vision and presenting a blueprint for a new Ghana economy for the 21st century and beyond. In my address to the nation, I promised you that I would respond to both speeches individually. On October 2022, I addressed the October 27th, 2022 speech by ex-president and politician fixture in Ghana politics and administration since the 1990s, John Dramani Mahama. Mr. Mahama had the audacity to call his speech on the economy "Building the Ghana We Want." This, after holding various political governmental offices over the last 2 decades and ignoring the economy and the people during his tenure. Now, I would like to respond to the economic speech presented by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on October 30th, 2022. This address, for all intents and purposes, appears to be a knee-jerk response to the surprise address of Mr. Mahama on October 27th, 2022. To dispel that appearance, the President and his MPP handlers tried to disguise his speech as part of a series of ongoing policy dialogue speeches with the people. We will begin our critique of this speech there. My name is Kofi Koranteng. I am your independent choice for president on the 2024 ballot, and my message is clear, concise, viable, and ready to take our nation into the future to create a new Ghana economy. My underlying principles and policies use a science-based, data-driven, human-centered approach to forging the new Ghana economy of the 21st century. It is a plan that focuses on creating a living, working partnership between the governed and the government. It is a dynamic plan that is detailed, concise, and adaptable to meet the needs of the future, which includes instituting a national development plan for the next 20, 30, 50 years. I have publicly published my plan on the website at kofikoranteng.com. I invite you to explore my detailed policies, plans, blueprints, and philosophy of governance at your leisure and in detail. An educated electorate is the best weapon against tyranny, deception, lies, and a corrupt government. Mr. Akufo-Addo spoke at length on October 30th, 2022 in response to the attacks on his economic policies by the NDC standard bearer, Mr. Mahama. Now, let's get to it and look at what the president had to say to his fellow Ghanaians on October 30th, 2022. He begins by telling the citizens that the speech is part of his ongoing dialogue in a popular series of speeches that he has regularly given since the beginning of the pandemic, known affectionately by the people as his fellow Ghanaians talks. Yes, there are a few of these speeches that begin with his greeting the citizens as fellow Ghanaians. Just as an aside, do the people really look forward to these addresses and hold their breath to the revelations contained within them? We will leave that one alone, for there are many other parts of the speech that need to be dissected. Let's begin with his third paragraph statement by the president. Now that we have seen the worst of the COVID-19, I can tell you that there were moments during those times when I was distraught. There were moments when I was in despair about the apparent inadequacy of our health facilities, and there were moments when I wondered if the dire predictions made about dead bodies on our streets would truly happen. I will give credit where credit is due and criticism where it is deserved. The early response to the pandemic by the Akufo-Addo administration is to be applauded. While other nations grappled with closing their borders, Akufo-Addo did not. He took the appropriate action and closed the nation to visitors, isolating Ghana from international exposure to the earlier, more prolific strains of the virus that causes COVID-19 was an excellent policy which likely saved lives and lessened the vulnerability of Ghana to the pandemic. Mr. President, I extend my congratulations to your administration for early response measures. However, that is where my laudatory praises end. Akufo-Addo does not mince words. In his third paragraph statement, he says, I was in despair about the apparent inadequacy of our healthcare facilities. Now the praise ends and the criticism begins. Mr. President, the question on my mind and that of your fellow Ghanaians at home and abroad is why over the terms of your presidency and years in government and as leader of the MPP was healthcare not addressed. Ghana should be a world leader in healthcare research, services, delivery, and innovation. The government of Ghana trains our best and brightest to become providers as nurses and doctors. Upon completing the education, they are encouraged to leave Ghana to practice in other countries. Why? The answer is complex yet simple. Ghana has failed over the last 2 decades to open new, advanced, and innovative health facilities to serve the fellow Ghanaians of Mr. Akufo-Addo. I say failed to open because there were hospitals that were built to suck graft monies from the construction contracts and operating budgets of a ghost hospital system. New facilities that never admitted a patient after millions in construction costs. The ghost hospital system of Ghana has more buildings servicing absolutely no citizens than the current open hospitals in Ghana. There are newly constructed hospitals in Aferi Military Hospital in the Ashanti region, Kronom Krapa Hospital in the Ashanti region, Yilokrobo District in the Eastern region, and Garu Tampani District Hospital in the Upper East region. These ghost hospitals with operating budgets sit like empty shrines to the failures of the administrations of the MPP and NDC over the last 20 plus years. The second part of the healthcare equation in Ghana is that we educate and graduate nurses and doctors who leave the shores of this jewel of Africa to practice their skills abroad. The NPP and NDC encourages this exodus and the shadow nation of the diaspora because they cannot vote in elections to depose the corrupt officials. Yet, they send billions of tax dollars home every year. In the last recorded reconciliation in 2018 of the movement of international money, the World Bank states that Ghanaians working abroad are responsible for sending home nearly $4 billion annually. This number continues to grow annually as the professionals who have taken their skills abroad rise through the ranks to become executives in the healthcare industries throughout the West, Middle East, and Caribbean. Like indentured servants, the nurses and doctors of Ghana are being exported like a commodity to replenish the treasury with international dollars. Let's look at some facts that have happened under the Akufo-Addo administrations, just relating to the exploitation of healthcare workers. I beg you not to consider these facts in a vacuum, but to realize that by exporting our best and brightest nurses and doctors, like so many sacks of cocoa, we are irreparably harming every facet of the Ghanaian economy. For every nurse and doctor that leaves the once pristine shores of Ghana, which are now tainted with the pollution of illegal mining. A piece of the middle class is leaving. In July 2020, the Akufo-Addo Health Minister, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostick, wearing a face mask, the symbol of the pandemic, proudly bid bon voyage to 95 nurses leaving under contract to Barbados. Our congratulations really in order. These 95 nurses who went to Barbados were needed by that country. They will supply their needs and reap a salary on which they will pay back taxes to Ghana. The story is not that simple. Every potential middle-class skilled worker who leaves Ghana depletes the Ghana economy of growth. If these nurses had the opportunity to stay home and work at modern hospitals, it would have greatly benefited the economy of their fellow Ghanaians. A dollar spent locally will significantly improve the economy. It is an accepted economic principle that a dollar spent locally will turn over 6 to 7 times. That means that it will grow other businesses, employ local people, and provide more jobs and opportunity to entry-level workers. By exporting workers, and especially high-skilled like those of our doctors, nurses, and technology gurus, Ghana is selling out the future. If you fear bodies in the street from a pandemic, that means you know that our hospital system is subpar. Before and after he was struck with that fear, President Akufo-Addo failed to plan and invest in the healthcare system. The development plan of Ghana requires thoughtful, purpose-driven action. A plan to build an innovative healthcare system requires an investment in our youth to train and employ them in the building of different trades. Ghana needs an army of youth to pursue their dreams of successful purpose at home. It begins with an investment in the infrastructure of roads, transportation, affordable housing, state-of-the-art hubs, modern innovative hospitals, as well as agriculture initiatives. In his speech, the president continues to pour accolades on himself for handling the COVID crisis and its effect on the economy. He talks about how he grew the economy during the pandemic, never mentioning that the World Bank provided Ghana with $100 million grant. He does not mention that the U.S., through various programs, deposited $30 million, $2.5 million, and $24.7 million into the Treasury of Ghana for COVID relief efforts. In February 2022, Pierre-Frank Laporte, World Bank Country Director, offered a stark accounting of some of the monies given to the Akufo-Addo administration during the pandemic. According to Mr. Laporte, Ghana received $430 million from the World Bank and an additional $130 million from the U.S. It was announced that the IMF also supported Ghana with $1 billion in assistance during the first year of the pandemic. My fellow Ghanaians, these numbers are closing in on $2 billion worth of extra aid supplied by the IMF, World Bank, and the USA alone. Other nations supplied more. The accounting of how, when, where, and why this money was spent to support the almost 32 million fellow Ghanaians is sketchy. This much we know. Housing was not built. Healthcare was not upgraded. Water purification and delivery was not put in place. The youth were not trained for jobs of the future. Farmers were not educated and assisted in innovative production methods, and promised food was not distributed. The $2 billion in COVID relief grants is an aid amount that equates to over 887 cedis for every man, woman, and child in Ghana. In a country that in a 2018 reported the average annual wage for a worker was 860 cedis, This only makes sense to the creative accounting magicians of the MPP and NDC. Like previous budgets, the 2022 Citizens Budget was presented in a 40-page glossy magazine format with stunning pictures of a nation on the move. Throughout this budget are line items that stun the senses and shock one's soul. In Figure 5 expenditure item and the allocations for 2022, there are 8 line items that make up these expenditures. The first largest line item states interest payments, 37.5 billion cedis. This, my fellow Ghanaians, includes the debt obligations that this and past administrations have pledged to the IMF for loans that were squandered over the decades. It is the promissory notes that the MPP, NDC have signed against our future, our children's future, and our grandchildren's future. These promissory notes ensure that fellow Ghanaians remain enslaved to the chains of capitalistic debt far into the century. The second largest line item is compensation for the government employees, which includes ministers along with MPs and their staffs. It includes the vice president and your fellow Ghanaian president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and their staffs. This number is 35.84 billion cedis. Keep in mind, that is not the cost of government. That is the salaries of those who perpetrate a Ponzi scheme and on fellow Ghanaians every day of every week, of every year, of every administration. In his fellow Ghanaians address on October 30th, 2022, the president continues to answer the charges of ex-President John Mahama. He talks about the austerity measures that will be enacted to put Ghana back on the economic track. The problem, my friends, is that these actors, and they are truly actors, are clueless about how to run a government for the benefit of the governed. If this matter wasn't so serious, these statements by the president will be considered comedic. The president tells you, his fellow Ghanaians, that he will trim government excess, cut expenditures by 30%, and take a pay cut himself. He tells you this by saying, at the just ended cabinet retreat at Peduase Lodge, my government agreed on a framework for the post-COVID-19 program for economic growth and the IMF support for its implementation, as well as the work being done by the Ministry of Finance in preparation for the 2023 budget. He readily admits and almost proudly states that the austerity decisions were made at cabinet retreat at Peduase Lodge. Were the government buildings not available for these cabinet meetings? Here is a setup for the joke. However, I have a problem with the punchline. At a retreat where excess government money is being spent, it was decided that an austerity budget would be put in place that would cut executive government salaries by 30%. Cutting your salaries from 30 times to 21 times that of the average salary of a fellow Ghanaian doesn't seem like a cut to me. Or is the punchline that the austerity, suffering, and hardships of the budget will fall on the shoulders of those that they regard as their fellow Ghanaians? I think that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo missed his calling as a stand-up comedian. In that same statement, I want you to take note of the driving force that is dictating the changes in austerity in the coming budget. Note these words: program for economic growth and the IMF support for its implementation. This is where the ugly truth peeks out from behind the secretive veil. After both previous administrations of the MPP and NDC have mortgaged our future to the IMF, it is they, as the mortgagee, who are in control of the future of fellow Ghanaians. The president goes on to lay out some bullet points that his staff decided sound good for a speech on the economy. They are wasted words that match the wasted years of this administration. My blueprints and policy initiatives have been publicly published since before the 2020 elections, giving even the sleeping president time to read and steal a few ideas. Unlike the half-hearted attempt to create an effective government for fellow Ghanaians by the committee team of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and John Mahama, I begin with these essential policies to begin a new course for Ghana. As president, I will work to change the Constitution. I will institute a national development plan for the next 20, 30, and 50 years. I will abolish Article 71 and ex gratia, enforce law and order, focus on developing skills for the youth, institute a flat rate import duty, complete all unfinished projects by the NDC and MPP with strict fiscal oversight and auditing. The structural changes to the government of Ghana that I believe are necessary to charge the course of our nation include: put traditional leaders on the government payroll, cut the number of ministries to an essential 10, reorganize the nation into 10 regions to enable better oversight and services, abolish regional ministers, limit the presidential staff to a payroll not to exceed 100, put all 10 ministries in one building for a more responsive government. The government will only pay for coach airfare and only for necessary approved and justified travel with a goal of reducing official business travel. As part of reviewing and auditing the perks and extras of government officials, we will seek to approve only essential fuel-efficient automobiles, hopefully by Kantanka. There will be no luxury automobiles approved for government officials. Abolish company boards. That will be one of them. My brothers and sisters of Ghana, we can rebuild our nation to match the dreams of our forefathers who envisioned a people free from the shackles of colonialism. To right the economy, we must nurture our youth and provide them the opportunities and tools to achieve their dreams. Along with the best educational system in Africa for those that want to be nurses, engineers, doctors, attorneys, artificial intelligence coders, technology innovators, we must build and staff schools for those who want to be artists, entertainers, plumbers, carpenters, bricklayers, police officers, and civil service workers. The future of Ghana is its youth. We must welcome home the diaspora who are the foundation of the middle class and the promise of an entrepreneurial economy. No more graft, no more corruption, no more secret deals by two parties who pretend to offer a choice. The classic example of the collusion of the two parties to deceive the people of Ghana is the secret pact that this president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and Mr. Mahama made during the 2020 election campaign. During the NDC reign of President Mahama, he made a deal with MPS to relinquish majority control of the port of Tema. This deal sold out Ghana for years to come while providing high-paying slush fund jobs to party bosses. In a secret meeting between President Mahama and the Akufo-Addo campaign during the 2020 election cycle, it was agreed that no mention should be made of the biggest robbery of fellow Ghanaians, the Tema port heist. In return, should Akufo-Addo win, Mahama would point out which jobs at the Tema harbor would be available for NDC operatives and cronies. My fellow Ghanaians, I am here to tell you the NDC and MPP are one in the same. You, as a promise of the future, must elect a new vision. Let's change the future today by changing the government of corruption. In 2024, vote for a new Ghana economy. Your future depends on it. I look forward to the coming months of this campaign where we can discuss the ideas and how together we get to a new Ghana economy that addresses shared wealth, a prosperous nation, and bold initiatives. I challenge the MPP and NDC to debate my ideas openly and publicly and defend their policies to all Ghanaians. Join me as I travel the nation to discuss and sharpen a vision for a new Ghana economy driven by the youth, who are the future of our nation and the African continent. Explore my ideas, policies, and vision for a new Ghana economy at Kofi-Koranteng.com. Join the conversation on a new Ghana on Telegram at t.me/KK2024. Donate what you can at Kofi-Koranteng.com/donate. Thank you. Tuyeng Dachi.